Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Rowley.
And I'm Karen Borda. We'll have live team coverage of the bus rollover in a moment.
But first tonight, a CBS 11 News investigation uncovers how State Representative Terry Hodge accepted thousands of dollars in rent payments from developer Brian Potashnik. Both are subjects of the FBI's corruption investigation into low-income housing projects. CBS 11's Robert Riggs joins us tonight with his exclusive report. Robert?
Tracy, a few weeks ago, we put a simple question to Representative Hodge. Who pays your rent? Hodge stayed silent for nearly half a minute. Now there are more questions. How did Brian Potashnik's company win state approval for millions of dollars worth of low-income apartment projects? And how did Hodge come to live in one of the very Potashnik projects she supported?
This is Representative Hodge.
State Representative Terry Hodge of Dallas accepted approximately $33,000 worth of unreported rent money and utilities from developer Brian Potashnik of Southwest Housing. A 2-month investigation by CBS 11 found that Potashnik supplemented Hodge's rent with corporate payments for 3.5 years. The 4-term lawmaker's support helped Potashnik win state approval of millions of dollars in taxpayer-financed subsidies for a half-dozen projects. CBS 11 has learned that Potashnik's rent payments were terminated after we first questioned Hodge in late August.
The important question is, do you pay the rent? Do you pay the monthly rent? Is there a personal check from Terry Hodge paying the rent at the Potashnik development where you live? Do you pay your own rent?
What was your name again?
Robert Riggs.
Mr. Riggs, let me say this to you, sir, as best I know how. Sir, I have no comment. I am sitting here doing my job. And today, that's all I'm going to do.
According to this Southwest Housing rent roll obtained by CBS 11, Potashnik's payments for Hodge started when she moved in April of 2002. The spreadsheet lists Hodge's rent is $899 a month. A line item note shows that Southwest Housing paid part of Hodge's monthly rent with a check for $699. Representative Hodge did not report rent payments from Potashnik on her last 3 annual personal financial statements filed with the Texas Ethics Commission.
When that is on the heels of value being conferred, that is not reported, and that's what's critical here, is not reported, then some would argue that it smells like 3-day-old fish.
When Hodge ran for re-election in early 2002, she needed another place to live. Hodge's $200,000 home in East Dallas did not reside in her newly redrawn House district, but the Rosemont at Arlington Park apartments owned by Potashnik did.
A former Southwest Housing employee says Hodge showed up here with Brian Potashnik at her side. The powerful lawmaker picked out a premium poolside apartment that was already under contract to someone else. 2 former employees say that the leasing agents were ordered to cancel that contract and put Hodge into the apartment.
Hodge has even taken Potashnik's side against her own constituents whose neighborhoods opposed his projects.
If you were to find out Representative Hodge was getting free rent over there, and then you look back and she supported the project and that your neighborhood opposed it, what would you think?
It wouldn't be fair. And that's a fact. It just wouldn't be fair. It's not fair to the people.
Before and after Hodge moved into Potashnik's apartment, she sent official letters and testified in favor of his projects. In this January 2005 letter obtained from the Texas Department of Housing, the lawmaker praised Potashnik, writing, "I applaud the applicant for their vision. I would like to express my full support. Your consideration of a favorable response would be appreciated." It was an uncommon letter because, as noted by its recipient, Potashnik's project was not in Hodge's district.
3 former Southwest employees say Hodge's lease file was kept under wraps at corporate headquarters. A former high-ranking manager says Potashnik justified the rent payment, saying, "Terry is a friend and we want to help her out." Hodge's attorney Mike Snipes says the lawmaker didn't do anything wrong. Potashnik declined to comment through his attorney. You can read much more about our investigation on our website at cbs11tv.com. And they've only seen half the story. Much more on that website.
All right, I'll certainly read it, and thank you very much. Robert Riggs reporting tonight. First, there was the question of who pays the rent. Tonight, there's a new question. Why is State Representative Terry Hodge of Dallas using a legislative privilege to help hundreds of convicts, including a notorious mass murderer? Tonight, CBS 11's Robert Riggs joins us with more from an ongoing investigation that now stretches from Dallas City Hall into the Texas prison system. Robert.
Tracy, our investigation found that Representative Terry Hodge has intervened on behalf of more than 500 prison inmates since 2003. CBS 11 learned through the Open Records Act that Hodge wrote 65 letters requesting confidential information by claiming the use of a special legislative privilege. Prison officials say it is highly unusual, especially when many of the convicts are not even from Hodge's district.
I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was mad at the world.
He is one of Texas' original mass murderers. Larry Casey went on a shooting rampage in Houston 32 years ago. Casey randomly shot 5 people, killing 2 little girls and an elderly woman.
I think he's about as dangerous as they come.
And for me,
For the past 2 years, State Representative Terry Hodge of Dallas has been using her legislative office to try to get Casey out of prison.
She's done a good job so far, what she's done. She's...
Casey says he contacted Hodge after she made an open invitation to help inmates during a Houston radio show broadcast to state prisons.
She's done a lot of work from my understanding. She's talked to people and really turned over some rocks and tried to find out what's going on.
Can you imagine why anyone, much less a state lawmaker, would take up the cause of a mass murderer like Casey?
No, I can't imagine why anyone would take up Larry Casey's cause. Let the system work, but Casey doesn't need any help, and he certainly doesn't need to be on the street. I cannot imagine.
2 years ago, David Weeks, the Walker County Criminal District Attorney, received a tip from inside the prison system. Casey was trying to hire a hitman to kill Houston prosecutor Burt Graham.
He tried Casey over 30 years ago, and every Christmas Casey had sent him a Christmas card, said, "Thinking of you," and apparently never forgot him.
Hodge intervened on behalf of Casey during the criminal investigation. The lawmaker demanded and received a copy of the Inspector General's confidential investigative file about Casey by claiming it was for a legislative purpose.
I think there's a real danger that he got that information. And you're talking about somebody that carries grudges for 30 years and wants to have people killed. That's terrifying.
Hodge's interest in Casey did not end. She continued writing letters about his case. And in the last session of the legislature, Hodge introduced a good conduct time bill that would make it easier for hardened convicts like Casey to get out of prison early.
An advocacy group for inmates called the Texas Justice Network was the biggest supporter of Hodge's good conduct bill during committee hearings last March. CBS 11 has learned that Hodge was a paid consultant for the Texas Justice Network in 2004. According to the lawmaker's personal financial statement filed with the Ethics Commission 6 weeks after the hearing. District Attorney Weeks says Hodge should have disclosed her financial relationship with the inmate group during the committee hearing.
It's a problem in my mind, if not legally, it's certainly a problem of perception and how the public and others look at it.
Larry Casey says Hodge is now trying to get him moved out of a solitary confinement cell block reserved for dangerous inmates. And Hodge has made another request, this one about us. The legislature asked the prison system to immediately send her copies of all of the information that CBS 11 obtained under the Open Records Act. Hodge declined to comment for this report through her attorney. We'll have more on our investigation tomorrow night, and of course you can read much more at cbs11tv.com.
Okay, we'll look forward to it. Thank you, Robert.
Hodge bragged about getting offenders out on parole and solicited contributions by saying, "I'll walk your dog if you walk my cat." That's according to members of the Texas Inmate Families Association. Hodge, who has not faced serious opposition in 4 terms, often taps campaign funds to legally pay thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket expenses. Tonight, our investigation looks at how Hodge received more than $1,500 in contributions after helping violent offenders.
There is not one person that can ever say, Terry Hodge charged me a dime to help my son.
Hundreds of dollars flowed into State Representative Terry Hodge's political campaign chest from the parents of violent offenders who live outside her Dallas district. Hodge, who is a powerful member of the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee, accepted the contributions after she pressed the Texas prison and parole systems for the inmates' early releases. Hodge accepted a total of $1,200 from the father of Billy Albrecht of Plano. Albrecht was serving an 8-year sentence for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Have I ever been paid a dime by Mr. William Albrecht about his son? Absolutely not.
Told that she had accepted $1,200, Hodge says inmates' parents contributed to show appreciation for her work.
I have no control over anybody who thinks I'm doing a decent job and want to give me a contribution.
Albrecht says he asked Hodge to help get a prison disciplinary case dropped because it prevented his son from being eligible for parole. 3 weeks after the prison system dismissed the case, Albrecht contributed $500 to Hodge's political campaign.
Later, this phone message obtained by CBS 11 indicates Hodge asked the parole board to give Albrecht and his family rare face-to-face interviews with its members. 1 month later, Albrecht received parole. And 2 weeks later, Hodge received another $500 contribution from Albrecht's father. Later, at the upscale Bob's Steak and Chop House in Dallas, Albrecht's parents treated Hodge to dinner.
But you know, people take us to dinner.
Get a little pre-roll.